Hi, everyone. Welcome to our session today on understanding your master's application components. And we're going to do a workshop format today. If you're here already, thank you for being on time. We really appreciate that. We will wait for another minute or so for some other people to join in as well. And then we shall get started. This session is, focused on you considering a master's for the upcoming intake, whether it's spring 25 or fall 25. So if you do fall in one of those two categories, then you're at the right place at the right time, because this is, the thick of it has just begun. And, for the next 12 weeks, you'll be going in full tempo on making sure that all your components are complete. So this is the time to kind of get down to it and really get the facts straight. But if you are someone who's younger and is not really looking at applying for 2025, but are here to just gain a little bit of insight and information, you still have time, and this is the right place to start thinking. But don't hit panic yet. Sit back, relax, sponge all the information that is being shared. Of course, keep throwing in questions for us, but don't panic, right? Because you have ample time. And I think the first thing you're probably going to have to work on is your standardized test timing. So that's the first thing you want to get out of the way if you're looking at a spring 26 or a fall 26 or thereafter. But if you're looking at fall 2025 or spring 2025, then there are multiple components that are going to kind of overlap for you here on. So it's good that you kind of chosen to be here. And like I was saying, that we are going to try and workshop this a little bit. So it won't just be me talking at you all the time. A bit of it in the beginning where I'm giving you a little bit about the landscape. And then when we get into the component section, I would have everybody to unmute, ask questions, chime in. We'll workshop the components element a little bit. If you have a very specific question that you don't mind asking in a full forum, then do that. But even if you just want to put it in the chat box and get one of us to write you a response, we're happy with that as well. We will do a Q&A at the end, but just want to make the components a little more interactive. And then when we do the timeline and things, I'm going to go back to talking at you because it's instructional. I want to make sure that you are making notes. So if you still need to go grab a paper pen, if you're the paper pen kind, if you want to open your laptop or you want to get onto your device and just start making notes, then that's also okay. That's absolutely okay. If you already know that you're going in 2025 and, just let us know what subject are you looking at. If you can identify some subjects for me, then I can kind of curate some of the content that I'm going to share with you based on your subject, specific to your subject. All right. Now, why are we talking to you, right? Because over the last 20 years that I've been doing this, and over the last 10, 11 years that the Recom has been doing this, we've noticed 2 or 3 very key traits in making successful PhD applications happen. And that one of that is getting direct admission officers, right? And that's what we do at the Red Pen, and that's what we bring to you. More than expertise that we have working one-on-one with applicants like you, we also spend a lot of time working admission officers. In fact, yesterday I had 3 emails in my inbox that I've reached out to admission officers. They're kind of trying to schedule time and date for them to meet the team. So what we do bring you is the most updated information, the most first-hand information. And we are a small cohort, and the reason why we stay small is because we want to give each and every applicant that level of focus, that level of support, and that level of strategy. So because we are so strategy focused, and because a competitive master's and PhD application route doesn't guarantee admissions, it's very important for us to keep that focus going on you and your unique story and your narrative. And which is why we work with a very small cohort team, a small team which works with a small cohort. And we want to make sure that you really have that opportunity to get in. In fact, if I had to kind of give you the most common testimony that I get from our alum cohort, they actually say that while I went through the process, I genuinely have no regrets. And of course, 99% of them shouldn't have any regrets because they did get into their dream college. Even that 1% wanted to just throw caution to the wind and put their name in the hat and see if it gets drawn. They also have no regrets because they know that they actually put their best foot forward with the Red Pen backing them up. So we come to you from a deep domain expertise, right? And which is why we kind of appreciate the fact that you've been recognizing that about us, and you've taken the effort to join in on a Saturday morning and listen to us to you. I've been doing this for 18 plus years. I need to update those statistics. And the very key thing about the whole team is that we go through uh, psychological counseling training, right? We work very, very hard on building the right counseling voice. We work very hard on holding your hands. We work very hard on accepting you, non-judgmental, non-biased approach. Our non-verbal, our verbal. We make sure that you know, your family knows that we are here for you and we're here to support you. And so when you come to the Red Pen, you won't really be matched with a consultant. You will be matched with a counselor, and that's where that psychology comes in. That's where we want to kind of bring that to you as an experience. If you want to be our educational counselors, we do not want to be consultants who just work on your applications. All right. Now let's go back. And I'm sure most of you know this. I'm probably just wasting your time, but hear me out. Please be patient, right? You graduated your bachelor's. And now that you've graduated your bachelor's and you've decided you want to educate yourself further and you want to upskill yourself, then there are three pathways for you. If you have a bachelor's degree, you're looking at pretty much a diploma, which is simply one skill set that you want to build in yourself and upskill towards a job application or whatever. Or you're looking at a master's, you want a deeper dive into your subject area. You want to build a skill set, a domain knowledge that doesn't exist currently. You spent time doing Bachelor of Business Administration, you had a specialization in finance, so you did do finance, but you feel like you don't know enough. And therefore, you want to do a master's in quantitative finance or financial engineering. And you want to get a deeper understanding. And you want to be kind of establish yourself as a domain expert. And then that's where a master. And a PhD is coming from a space of saying, I want to be the subject matter expert. I want to be the thought leader who leads research in the domain. Even if I get hired back by a Reliance or by a McKinsey or whoever, after I finish my PhD, I'm truly going to be hired as a thought leader in that space. Whether that's computer science, whether that's philosophy, or whatever you're doing your doctoral degree, you're going to come from deep subject matter expertise, right? So those are your tracks after you have a bachelor's degree. Now let's look a little bit at like the kind of masters that are available. You have a taught masters. That's typically how we understand a classroom experience. A teacher stands in front of you, the teacher talks to you, gives you feedback, interacts with you, gets you to do projects, scores it, you do an exam. So that's an entire taught experience, right? A research master, and this is not as popular in the United States or the UK, Europe, is like a precursor to a PhD. In India, we used to have the MPhil degree, which is now being phased out, but MPhil is akin to a research master. So a research master is where at the end of it, your culmination point is not an exam or a project or whatever, it is actually a dissertation. And a lot of people will do that as a pre-doc, right? So an MRAS is a pre-doc in that sense. Please, guys, go ahead and take screenshots of this slide if you do spend a little more time reading about what I've written here, because I don't typically end up saying what I've written on the slide. A professional master's is for people who have work experience. I typically would encourage an applicant who comes to me with 3 to 4 years of work experience to look at an executive master's or professional master's, not otherwise. A master's as a domain is open for anybody from zero experience plus, right? So we worked with applicants with 11 years, 17 years, 5, 3, 5, 2. So we work with people with all amounts of work ex. And because there's no barrier for a master's. So when you are a mid-career professional and you feel like, okay, I know something about supply chain, but now I need a more focused knowledge set on supply chain, then you'll do a executive master's in supply chain at Columbia, for example. So an executive master, a professional master is a very unique space in your professional journey. And if you have 3 to 5 years of work experience, you know what I'm exactly talking about. But if you're somebody with 0 to 2 years work ex, you won't stay away from the professional masters, because when going into professional masters, the faculty assumes that you already know them. So that's not the place that you want to apply to. An MBA is also a master's, but again, it's a very unique master's. An MBA is case study focused, and it's definitely with work experience. It's a professional master, but because of the demand and supply within its scope, it's become this one unique entity, which is called an MBA, and the B school degree. And of course, B schools give other degrees, but people just know about MBA. But an MBA does not have a place in your life as an early or kickstarting your professional journey. The early professional will not feel the need for an MBA. If you're coming out of a BBA or a BCom or a BMS, and you're thinking, well, I just want an MBA, but you're overqualified, right? And if you find out why you're overqualified, drop me a question and I'm going to respond to it at the end of the session. And it has a very unique space, but it has it within your mid-career zone. And you could do any subject and then pack it up with a management degree, which is an MBA. All right, moving on. So therefore, what are the components of an international postgraduate application? That's what we are going to talk about today. I want each one of you to contribute if you can. Unmute yourself, feel free, or just drop it in the chat box and then I will get the question and we can talk you through it. First, I want to introduce to you the concept of a resume. Now, with somebody who's sitting here with work experience, if you think you can get away with a 1.5-page resume, no, please. No, you cannot. A 1-page resume is a must for the next 10 years of your first 10 years of your professional degree. Typically, you're looking at a resume which is a 1-pager. I want to also tell you that anything that you've done grade 12 and below is not going to find its place in your graduate school resume. You know, they are spending very minimal time. And very recently, we also spoke with an HR recruitment person, by the way. The team was kind of learning from them, and they also spoke with us and said that, yeah, we actually don't spend more than 8 to 12 seconds on a resume, because that's enough to let us know whether we should read the other components of the application. And that's exactly what admission officers tell us as well. So you want to make sure that you have the most recent updated information on your resume set. And that will only happen when you kind of move away from the mentality of thinking in your head that, oh, but I got 45 on 45 in my IB. I got a 99% in my CBSE best of 5. I was head boy in school. It doesn't hold any merit if for the last 3 or 4 years that you spent in college, you haven't done anything which trumps that or equals that. If you were head boy in school or head girl in school and then you haven't led a college, then it doesn't matter to me that if I was a 16 or 17 or an 18-year-old, you were a head boy or a head girl. Right? So you want to make sure that you have that eye on your own profile and you're thinking in your head, well, I definitely do want to only put recent stuff. If it's a quarter page of a resume that is really good, impactful information, let it go as a quarter page resume. You don't have to fill it up with words. 8 to 12 seconds. Wouldn't you rather they read exactly what they need to read versus reading filler words? Think about it. And while you think about it, I am open to questions right now. If anybody wants to have a very specific question about a resume, I can wait for a minute and we can discuss that a little bit. Any resume questions? Okay, so taking it for granted that everybody attending today kind of knows what a resume is and is going to make sure that they have a very concise and consistent document which is well formatted and has reverse chronological order, etc. All right, go ahead and take screenshots as you need to. I have a question called difference between CV and a resume. So a curriculum vitae is for academia purposes. It has a very strong research component. So you want to make sure that you do not submit a CV to a graduate school unless you're applying for a PhD. And if you're applying to a PhD, then you're going to have to submit a resume and a CV. You're going to submit a resume and a CV. All right. So a resume is that 1-page document that you want to focus on, which is impact. And a CV is about publications and academia and research and things like that. So they're two very different documents. And if you're looking at a Master's of Research graduate degree or a PhD, then, let us know and send us an email, share my contact details later, and I can kind of give you a template for a CV if that's what you really need. At no charge. I'm happy to send it to you. All right. No other questions on a resume and CV, so I'm going to move ahead. Or if you have a little bit of experience on your resume, and if you are still studying, then that's okay. An admission officer who is sitting there is thinking in their head, what did this person do outside of the classroom? And a little bit of work experience answers that question for them. right? You don't have to have a lot. Provided what you have, you're able to explain in a way where they can see what you learned and how you challenged your comfort zone. All right? Okay. Any more resume specific questions? Go ahead and put it in the chat box and we can come back to them later. I'm moving on to the next slide, which is the letters of recommendation. Now, this is very, very critical, especially for the audience I'm speaking to today. When we do these sessions with students from US universities or UK universities, very often this doesn't really stress them out as much because, yes, they have to have a strategy in place and they have to request recommendation in advance, in time. But that's it, because the recommender does not want them to look at it and it will not take feedback on the recommendation. But in India, it's a little different. In India, it's a bit different because recommenders will expect you to write it sometimes and they'll edit it. Sometimes you can go to the office and say, okay, here's my inbox, here it is. Can you just go ahead and upload all your letters here? And they don't want to really do the heavy lifting for you. Some colleges, in fact, engineering colleges are notorious for the professor will say, I'll only give 5. And you have 12 colleges. So now you have to find 3 professors in college for that one recommendation. And that's, it's kind of just creating separate obstacles for each applicant, right? So we kind of help our applicants navigate that. But the most important thing in your letter of recommendation is, one, ask in time. Make sure that you're asking the right question at the right time. If you don't want to go after the Diwali holiday, then they're like, well, I only had capacity for 10 minutes and fill that out. So I cannot give you a recommendation. You also want to make sure that your recommendation comes from a person who can show credibility for saying what they say. Okay, I'm going to give you an example. If I am a teaching assistant in an eco department and you come to me for a recommendation and then you're like, and I'm like, yeah, of course, I'm happy to give it to you. What would you like me to include? And you're like, talk about the time that I performed for college at Mood Indigo, or I led the Bottle United Nations Club for college, or I joined ISAC and I led this student council thing in ISAC. The person does have no credibility to talk about those experiences you've had outside the classroom, right? This person can at the most say that, I've heard that XYZ has a very active community engagement element in college, but that's it. How would this person as a teaching assistant be in a position to be able to vouch for it? In fact, not even your professor is, right? Because the professor can only vouch for things that are happening in front of them. Otherwise, everything else is hearsay. So they would have kind of, lose credibility as a recommender, right? So you want to make sure that you match that in your recommendation, and then what lens it is that the recommender is using, should they ask you for that feedback. All right. Are there any questions about the recommendation at this point? Just waiting to see if there's any question that comes up. Sorry, I'm just waiting for a second. I do, because on my device, I don't see the question. So somebody from the team is sending. Can you get an LO from previous work? All right. So when you look at a letter of recommendation, ideally, it should be the most recent. Okay. So you're currently working at AC company and you want one from XYZ. Ask yourself, what is the reason? Is it because you don't want to declare to ABC that you are going to be, not continuing should you get admitted, which sometimes happen, in which case in the form somewhere or the other, you want to be able to mention that, in an additional information section or something. The other is that if you feel like, no, that was my biggest jump, that was my biggest growth story, right? And if you're still in touch with that recommender as a direct supervisor, then yes, you can. They can't talk about this work that you're doing. They can talk about that time that they spent with you and how they see you, having grown while they were supervising you. But it depends on how previous that previous work was, So you have to think about it for yourself. So, okay, what is it that the narrative can bring in terms of a recommendation that my current work cannot show, right? That's very, very important. Typically, we do recommend that you look at least 6 to 8 weeks of having worked somewhere, especially for people who are still in college, when you do internships. If you work somewhere for 3 weeks, then don't bother with a recommendation, really. But if you've done 6 to 8 weeks minimum, then that's a good recommendation. If people working full time, at least 6 months for a supervisor to really be able to give solid examples of how the interactions are with you. Recommendations for UK and Europe, yes, that definitely happens. They do need it. The US typically asks for 3, sometimes 2, but mostly 3. I always talk to people about 3. The UK will ask for 1 or 2, right? And the UK also sometimes will say things like, we want 2 and we want them both to be academic. We don't want a professional. Europe also will ask for 2. Very rarely will they ask for 3 or make it optional to add 3. If somebody asks how many LORs are good, if a college, and remember, I think one of the programs that you can do up to 7 or up to 5, and the applicant was like, can I just do all 7? And we were like, all right, okay, let's start by 7, because when you get down to the bones of it, right, you don't have 7 unique stories coming out of you. You're a fresh graduate, 1 year work experience, you have 2 professional, you have 3 academic, and then what? That's maximum 5. You have 7. So then they kind of figure that out in the course of doing it. I think eventually they submitted 2 professional, 2 academic. But don't, just because you can submit up to doesn't you have to, because that means that spending less time reading the other elements of your application. And what if your recommendation is just a generic thing, right? Think about this. If I write a recommendation for Tripti Singh, and then you want a recommendation, I remove the name Tripti Singh and I put your name there and it applies, then that's not a good recommendation, right? So think about that. Somebody wants me to sum up the topics that have been covered. If you joined in late, you missed a little bit about the background of what a master's is and what are the types of master's or graduate study that you can do after a bachelor's degree. And then we discussed resume, and now we're discussing letters of recommendation. So you haven't missed much, just a little. So you're good in time. All right. Do we get to see the recommendation? No, typically not, right? Unless your recommender is making you write it and then they're editing it, right? Now, like at the Red, for example, what we do is we do 2 things. One, we would typically work with you, get the content from you, because you can't write your recommendation since you're going to write your essays. And we don't write essays for applicants. So what we typically do, we take recommendation, we take that content, we change the voice, we change the flow of it. And then based on that, right, you give that to your recommender and tell them to edit it. The other option that we offer our clients is, and a lot of recommenders actually, especially the liberal arts scholars, they appreciate that about us as a counseling team, is that we work directly with the with the academic professor or the professional. What we do is we give them the guidelines, they give us the content, we edit it for them, then they edit it further, and then they send it for the applicant, and the applicant has no purview to it. In fact, on your application form in the United States, they will tell you, do you waive the right for the recommendation? And in most cases, you should waive your right, because it means you're absolutely okay that you will not take a look at your recommendation, which means you have confidence that the person who's recommending me is going to do a good job of recommending me. So I would always encourage you to waive your rights. There is another question that does the professional qualification of the recommender matter? No. I once worked with an applicant who got into Harvard for a degree in education, and her recommendation was from a panchayat head of panchayat of the village where she did an education program for the girls. Okay, there was this village near her city where her family had a little farmhouse, and she'd go there as a child, and she knew some of the farmers around, and she, the people who worked in that house. She had those children, she had access to those children. She started doing this thing. Every time there was a long weekend, she would go take books from the city, and then she started teaching them. And then it became something that kind of started thinking about education with. And then she joined another NGO that taught students, on sidewalks, on the footpaths of India, in the city. And then that became a little more formal. And then she wanted to submit, but she continued that work, right? So then she got one from the panchayat head. And the panchayat head did not speak English, right? So there was a translated version that had to be done thereafter. So there were two given, etc. But no, the title of your recommender doesn't really matter. What they do with you, how closely they supervise you, how much they know you, how well they know you, that really matters. There has to be credibility. If your recommender is sending a recommendation from gmail.com, google.com, hotmail.com, then that's not okay. It should be official, right? For extracurriculars, who approach LOR. So if you are talking about extracurriculars in college, and this is the last question I'll take on LOR, I'll go back to it should we have time at the end. If you are looking at extracurriculars in college, okay, maybe the HOD or the dean, because those are the people who actually know what's happened every student in their department, right? So then they can actually talk about it because they're like, okay, fine, this person is doing outside the classroom. But also sometimes colleges give coordinators, right? Like I know Kaleidoscope has a teacher coordinator. I know Malhar has a team of teacher coordinators. So there are these teachers who are in charge of certain activities or club initiatives and things. So then you want to make sure that you get those people to write it for you. Even research labs and stuff, if you've done in college, you want to make sure you get the research mentor to do it and not the class teacher talking about it as a secondary part. All right. Moving on to the next slide, right? This is a bit technical. It's transcripts and credit evaluation. There's a lot of confusion. I can tell you how many calls we deal with every day where people are like, listen, I don't know what my conversion is. Listen, I don't know whether I qualify for a 16th year in the United States or not. Please take a screenshot of this slide and you can kind of understand. And this is just a sample. What I've given you as a percentage conversion to a 4.0 scale, it's not like I've developed it and you have to hold it as a gospel truth, but this is just an indicator for you to understand. Yes, thank you, Sonu. My teammate is answering questions online as well. So you want to make sure that you do these calculations separately and have a sense of what you are submitting. Your college will give a transcript. I think now in India, all colleges have transcripts formats. So you should not have to worry about that. And that transcript has a conversion table. So that's the first place where you should see your own conversion. You shouldn't take it out from the internet. Should your college not have a conversion table, then that's where you really need to think about where can you get a conversion table on your transcript, because that's something you have to work with the college registrar with. It's very, very critical that you do get a transcript which has a conversion table on it, right? And for the US and for North America, for US and Canada, now even for New Zealand actually, WES is a third-party service that does a credit evaluation, and it takes your 3-year undergraduate degree and puts it into perspective so that the admission officer on the other side can understand whether you're equivalent or whether the rate was enough for you to qualify as a full equivalent. Now, in the United States, you will get 3 options. Let's look at what the most popular options are. One is any degree works. On a case basis, we will evaluate. Even if it's 3-year or it's 4-year, doesn't matter. Okay? You're safe. Apply. Dekho kya karte hai. But make sure there's a transcript which has a conversion table. Then some people will say, do a WES. And if it is equivalent to a bachelor's degree, we are okay with it. We don't care if it's 3 years or 4 years. Okay? So you have to go through the WES process, do it, and WES also has some free tools online, so you can check that out. And if it says bachelor's degree, you're sorted. Okay, that's fine. Some colleges will say WES equivalent, WES bachelor's evaluation equivalent to a 4-year degree. Now that other condition that exists. So you're going to go to WES, and if it says equivalent to 4 years, that's fine. But if it only says bachelor's degree, then it's not. You understand? Now, in the free calculator to the paid service, it could be different. I am telling you upfront, you have to credit by credit evaluation. That's the only thing that calms the admission teams down. Okay, if you do like a cheaper version, they will still find red flags. And look, it is application season. The more red flags you give them, the less time they have to spend on other components. And then they want to just park you on the side and say, okay, I'll come back to this later if I need to. That's not a situation you want to create for yourself. So be careful, pay that extra $272, whatever it is, for the credit by credit evaluation. Should be applying to a majority of colleges that need the WES. Don't skip up on that. It might as well just get it done. WES is only one of the companies. You can do other companies, but WES is the most popular. 99% of the colleges in the United States take it. And some that don't, they have their own evaluations, and then they just do it themselves. So that is that. All right. Any questions about WES? Yeah, put it in the chat box. Either my teammates will answer it, or then I could just take it at the end of the session. This is a very big chunk of what I would want to talk to you about. So I'll spend a few minutes talking about this. When we look at a statement of purpose, by the way, we do have a session coming up in less than a month. It was the end of September, specifically on statement of purpose. Okay. So if you haven't started writing your essay and you're doing this whole thing on your own, start now. So you have 3 weeks, get some level of an essay work done. And when you come to the session, you can actually then refine your essay. Okay. So having said that, when we look at a statement of purpose, it is very important to understand that a graduate school essay is very different from an undergraduate essay. For some of you who applied for undergrad to liberal arts in India or abroad, you're thinking in your head, well, I've done it before, I can just do it again. Yes, but this is less about you and your awarenesses about yourself, which the undergrad essays are potentially in North America. And this is more about your deeper learnings and insights about the subject you are choosing and the clarity that informs you that why is now a good time in your life to do this. Okay, that's key. So when you look at a statement of purpose, the purpose is not my purpose in life. It's not philosophical. The purpose is my purpose to apply to you, apply for this program, apply now. Okay. Similar parameters align to the personal statement as well, which is in the UK, in Europe, in Canada, Singapore, Australia, they call it the personal statement. It is a personal statement, but it's not about a personal life. They don't want to know about your heartbreak. Okay. They want to know why this program matters to you. How can you prove to them that this program matters to you? And what are you going to do with the knowledge that this program is going to empower you with? Okay. So in that sense, it's very similar as a personal statement. Now, there are personal statements in the US, which are actually personal history statements or a diversity statement. These are separate essays. These essays are like, tell me about a slice of your life that gives me a deep insight into you, right? Again, oh, I stood for the election and I lost. That's not a slice of your life. That's very superficial. That's very skin deep. Okay, go deeper. You want to talk about, say that if they were, my parent had a moving job and we kept moving homes and I never got a sense of home. I don't know what home feels like. Okay, you've gone deep. So, but now what? So you have to now start talking about what that made you feel like. Because at the end of the day, with the 1.4 billion janta, we have enough army people and enough kids of those army people moving around. So it still makes you a little bit of a unique person until you take that experience and you ground yourself in it and say, how did it impact me? What was my journey? Have I resolved it? And if I resolved it, what skills did I use? How did I build those skills to resolve it? How did that coming of age happen to me? And then where am I now? Am I in the process of resolving it? Am I still in therapy? Like not just having resolved it? And that's okay. There's no right or wrong answer there. Or have I resolved it? And therefore, what maturity or what takeaway have I had from that experience? That's your personal history statement, your diversity statement. Okay. So I wanted to spend a little time talking about that because that's an essay that not many people talk about. You find a lot of information on the internet also about that, and we get a lot of people thinking about that essay, especially most competitive universities that ask for it, and then they really get stressed about saying, but what is this element? Your SOP, like I said to you, there is going to be a session. You will learn more about an SOP there. Video essays, notorious. Colleges are becoming more and more bullish and aggressive with the video format. We recently, a college, I'm not going to take a name, emailed someone and say, hey, listen, apply by this date, by August 31st, or then September onwards, we're only going to do video essays. And the video essays, you writing it manually in front of them. Okay. So Kira is one of the websites or one of the companies that does the video essays on behalf of the university. A very, very strong network within the university. So a lot of universities do Kira. Some universities do their own video essays and they're different formats, right? There is preset questions. So you have the questions on the form, then you pair it, then you go on, you record yourself, you upload the video, you're done. Some of them are like, okay, some practice sessions, and then the question just pops up and you have to perform then and there. And like what I said to you, you have to write an essay and you put the camera down and they can see you writing it and you take a picture and upload it and like that. So there are various formats of the video essay, and Kira is one of the people who's doing it the best. The sooner you get into the form, you can identify all these components, make a note, make a checklist for yourself, and then you know that these are all the components you have to go through, right? There are also interviews that happen. 3 stages of an interview. One might be like, it's mandatory. It is a step 2. You have to do it. Everybody has to do it. Oxford mostly does that on undergrad and postgrad side. The second is you've been shortlisted for an interview, so it's step 2. And the third is like it's optional. We recommend that, would you like to meet someone from our admissions team or an alumni? And mostly the answer is yes, you want to meet. Okay, you want to give them every little reason to pick you. All right. So those are the 3 interviews that you will encounter in your graduate school application process. Questions also that come are typically of various nature. Some ask about goals, they'll all ask about you, right, in different formats. But a lot of them will also ask about goals, and then they will also ask about, critical thinking skills. So they're definitely testing your critical thinking skills. So you want to make sure that, you practice thinking on your feet a little bit for those video interviews. All right. Any questions about essays and interviews before we move on? I am going to cover standardized tests, and I'm also going to talk about, some things that are in your control, something that are not in your control. We're going to talk a little bit about countries, and we're also going to talk about a little bit about some unique colleges that's, Indian still don't consider, but are fantastic places to consider. So I have that little cheat sheet for you later on. No questions? Oh, there are some questions. Let's take a look. Should we go for optional interview? Yes. That was the wink that I told you. You should always do an optional interview. And you should prepare for it. You shouldn't just try to wing it. Unless you're the best public speaker and you know your story pat down and you know everything that you have to know about interviews and you've done multiple in life. No, don't take it for granted. You always must prepare, but you should do it. That's the wink. All right. Okay, moving on because we have a lot of ground to cover. But keep the questions coming. My teammates are online, so they can also answer it as we go along. All right. So when we look at your application fee, there are waivers that are available, especially in the US, because that's the country that's notorious for charging application fees. So if you do apply early, sometimes they give you a waiver, or if you attend a webinar that they're hosting, they give you a discount code or something like that. UK typically doesn't charge application fees. UK, Europe, they don't charge. Australia doesn't charge. Canada charges, US charges. So you want to keep that kind of money aside for that. Netherlands has a StudyLink portal, but more typically there are no other common portals that exist. So yeah, take a snapshot of this. You can preview it, and then of course, if you have any questions, you can always email us your questions if you get stuck. But forms are open, US, August, September, October for other parts of the world. You want to have your college ready so that you can actually just start filling out the forms. Now let's talk a little bit about standardized testing. We're looking at doing the GRE or GMAT. Should I give the GRE or GMAT? University said it's optional. If you have the money, if you have the bandwidth, right? And bandwidth is expandable. Remember, it's like a rubber band. If you have all the means and resources to give it and you're just skimping out of it because you're, I don't want to make the effort, then you know the answer to that question. The reality is that the person sitting next to you in class, the 7 sitting behind you, the 15 sitting in front of you, the others exactly like the 50 of you in other colleges in your city, and then the 50 others in every other city in India, and then 50 others in China and in Malaysia and in Pakistan and in Bangladesh and from Europe and from Canada and Australia and New Zealand and Singapore and Africa. They're all giving the GMAT and submitting the scores. There are a handful of you that are thinking of not doing it. We're actually taking that option as an option. Now you tell me, if it comes down to 3 final seats and 7 final candidates, what is the probability of you getting that seat? Okay. I hope that answers your question. If not, ask it again in the box. If you are looking only at the United States, and I'm not saying North America, I'm saying only the United States, then go ahead and give the TOEFL. The TOEFL is very popular in the United States, so you cannot go wrong there. But if you're looking at doing some colleges in the US, but also in Canada, some in the UK, but also in the US, then the thing is that almost all colleges accept the TOEFL, but for the visa, you need the IELTS anyway, the academic CBT, computer-based test or the paper-based, but I prefer the computer-based, the results come faster. So you're going to do the IELTS for the visa in a few months any which ways. So you might as well get it done with now, right? And the US, 99.9% of the colleges also accept the IELTS. There'll be like a 0.1 college, like one program in one college might say, IELTS. I am a full native English speaker. I am studying English in my life. Do I need to give an English test? Yes, because English is not an official language in India. And you don't want to give an admission officer any reason to spend extra time thinking about. The minute they have 15 minutes, they want to tick boxes, you can get down to the real fit that you have. And English with India is hard. See, in India, there are so many Indias. And admission officers, especially the ones that come to India very often and recruit from India very often, but they have to spend time figuring out India. Are you native? Are you bilingual? Are you trilingual? Are you quadrilingual? Are you actually rural and completely non-English but are learning English now? So they have to spend that time understanding you. You're giving something to red flag and say, okay, I'm going to come back to this later. I'm not sure yet. Think of the experience, right? Okay. And remember, I said in the resume, nothing from like before first year of college matters. So how do they know you went to an all-English school and all? It doesn't really matter to them. And PTE, the person test of English, it's probably the easiest, but not many people really accept it. So I would refrain from using it, but it exists. So I put it there. Now, anybody sitting here who calls the red team and then says, I'm so stressed, ma'am. Will I get it? Okay. Do not call us and ask us that question, because, my dear friend, if you can control what is in your sphere of influence, if you can wake up every day and say, today I'm going to bring in maximum productivity and impact to my day, and that's all that I have to offer every day of my life, then the college that sees you as a good fit for them will accept you, will give you a merit scholarship if it's applicable in that country. So don't doubt yourself on a question that exists beyond your control. Focus on the things that you can do right from September 1 until the day of your deadline. And say, if I can just put this one leg in front of the other every day, productively, in an engaged fashion, mindfully, impactfully, whatever, then whichever college that I think is a good fit, because you're only going to apply to a list of colleges that are a good fit for you, right? You're not just like shooting in the 50, correct? So then all of these colleges are a good fit, and whichever one thinks I'm a good fit will take me. If you're going to be unrealistic and your college list is going to be only dream colleges, then the anxiety which is beyond your control will start harrowing you. It will give you sleepless nights. But if you are smart and you're strategic and you're going to be able to balance your college list, and then you're going to only be able to focus all your energy on your talent. I'm going to take a minute and explain that success quotient bit to you, because I know sometimes people come back to me after the session and they tell me, Tripti, what do you mean by success quotient? So I'm going to explain that to you. Your voice, data, standardized test scores is GRE, GMAT, English testing. If you are able to do a strategically good job with your college list, then your entire energy is going to be focused on talent, voice, data. It's not going to be in that big red zone that I have on the screen in front of me. All right. Now, therefore, moving on. Actually, I'm going to skip a slide and then come back to it. I'm going to talk to you about that success quotient, right? I used to call it the X factor. I changed it to success quotient. Inherently, both are the same. It's basically your intellectual curiosity. It's the talent that motivates you every day to get up and engage with this subject that you deeply love and you claim to love and you want to know more about. I want to inherit my dad's business. I want to be the best supply chain manager at my father's factory. I want to apply for a master's in supply chain management. Great. Fantastic learning about yourself. Great short-term goal to have. Master's in supply chain management. Show me. Why are you so intellectually curious about supply chain? Do some research in supply chain. You're reading enough material about supply chain, right? How many girls are there in supply chain that you actually feel like you're going to be that leader who's going to create big impact in supply chain? If you're a girl candidate, what are your projects in supply chain? Are you doing any internships in supply chain? Are you using your AI skills to build an app or a bot that can solve a problem that exists in the world of supply chain? Do you know the problem that exists in the world of supply chain? You must demonstrate intellectual curiosity. Go back, take 30 seconds with me. Go back to your life as a young person in the ages of 3, 4 to 10, 11. Remember how every new concept got you really, really curious? You got very, very excited to learn more, dig deeper. Do you remember that? Formula One. I was 11 years old when I got introduced to the concept of Formula One. And I didn't have access to internet when I was an 11-year-old. So I spent so many hours harrowing my father's brain to talk to me about Formula One, who, poor guy, had no idea about Formula One, who then had to find me a relative who lived abroad to talk to me about NASCAR, because that's the person that he lived in the US and that's the only thing he knew. And then, but this person led me to books and said, why don't you go to your local library and figure out some books? And then, of course, we had MTV and Channel V and all of that. So then I started figuring that, I have a sports channel on Star Sports that actually shows Formula One. And then I started watching, some of the great guns. And then eventually Schumacher came into my life. And then I was hooked. And that was intellectual curiosity as an 11-year-old, right? That's the same inquisitiveness, the curiosity that you bring to this new subject, this newfound passion, commitment, love that you are wanting to commit to. That is your success quotient. If you can demonstrate that you are willing to challenge your comfort zone and study something beyond the classroom and engage with it in your free time, and that's your chill time, that's a you time. Studying supply chain is a you time, right? Then you're showcasing to me that you have a high success quotient. That's what you're demonstrating to me. I hope the concept is clear with that example. If there are any questions about this intellectual curiosity, I'll wait for 30 seconds to answer those and then we can move on thereafter. Okay. No questions? All right. Look at your timeline. First, what is pretty much done as of today, but you could actually tag team it with the September-October dot and do them together. This is a clickable slide. Go ahead and take a picture, stick it up somewhere in your room, on your laptop, whatever, so that you know that this is coming up and you have to meet your deadlines in a timely fashion. I sometimes tell the people that I work with, we're a team of counselors and each one of us have a very unique style. And every time I first meet with an applicant who's been assigned to me, I always tell them, listen, if you want a fantastic New Year holiday, if you want to travel for New Year's, and you want to have a party time, and you want to make sure that you have nothing left on your plate, target submitting your application by December. And each one of you attending this session today have that opportunity. You have the opportunity to put December mid as a target and actually finish applications, even if the deadline is Jan. You have ample time. And if you don't, but you want to understand whether you have the time or not, sure, we can speak to you about it and think it through with you. But typically, you do have the time. September, October, November, December, 3.5 months. If you have some elements figured out already, you have the time, right? So don't shy away from doing a good job. Just get started. All right. Let's move on to country fact sheet. Again, a clickable slide. I want each one of you to read it at your leisure. Look at the number of undergraduate years of study that are needed, the length of the postgraduate study. These are indications, right? 99% is how it happens. Might be one or two exceptions. And the visa extensions are here. Of course, the US is going to have elections at the end of this year. So we don't know what might change. It may not change very soon, but you never know. You never say never. All right. Moving on. These are some of the niche universities I would love for applicants from India to consider. Fantastic options in the United States, in Canada, in Singapore, Australia, Europe. And Ryerson, in fact, now they changed last year to Toronto Metropolitan. So that will change on my slide. But these are fantastic options. Not everybody knows about them. These are hidden gems. Do take a look at these options. Take a look at the programs they offer. HEC Paris, for example, fantastic finance program. Syracuse for marketing is fantastic. For sciences is phenomenal. The engineering department is so strong. University of Hong Kong does amazing sciences as well. University of Southern California does an amazing program in entrepreneurship, besides its usual marketing and finance and stuff. So take a look at some of these programs and then add them to your list if you feel like, yes, the curriculum does align with what I see myself studying going forth, right? I also get a lot of requests to talk about funding. So this is my funding slide for everybody. Again, these are indications. These are not absolutions. So please take it with a pinch of salt. And if you can look at the tuition and fees paid of any university that you're deeply interested in, and they're only showcasing the tuition fees for 24 to 25, just add a 5% inflation amount, and then you will get a better sense of what the fees will look like for next year. Typically, universities are notorious for increasing between 2 to 5% every year. So 5% you should be safe, right? All right. That does bring us to the end of the discussion today. I encourage each and every one of you to take a few seconds, think about the questions that you have. You have access to me right now. I'm waiting here. Please let me know what questions I can answer for you. If you also want me to just share a slide again, you can put it in the chat and I'll do that. I'm getting some questions. Choosing the right exam between Masters and MBA. Hey, listen, it's usually simple actually. If you're looking at the United States, they are okay with GRE or GMAT. Look at what your core quant rigor has been in your undergrad. If you're stronger with quant, but your verbal was weaker, like if you're from an engineering background, typically, then you want to give the GRE, show them, put your right foot forward. If it's opposite, you feel like your quant rigor was lesser, but your verbal is stronger, then do the GMAT, challenge yourself with a stronger quant. But they really have no preference, to be honest. I mean, at this point, like finding strategy for strategy's sake. The UK and Europe sometimes do mention specifically that they recommend the GMAT. So if you're looking at an MBA outside the United States, you want to make sure that you have your college list ready and then do a pattern recognition of which ones have a recommendation for GMAT GRE, and then that will answer your question directly. It's going to be about just exactly giving them what they want. Which college on the deck do you recommend for marketing? Oh, that's a fantastic question. Purdue has a fantastic marketing science program. It's called Marketing Analytics. Also, University of Southern California. Both are notorious for not giving a lot of scholarships. Northeastern in the US also has it. They, in fact, have a co-op program, which means that you have to work as a part of your study. And that's what's fantastic about co-op, because then that chances are that converts into a job. And that's what Canada is popular for. Canada is known for co-op. Every college in Canada has a co-op opportunity. So in the US, Northeastern is one of the 2-3 that have a co-op. Fordham has a fantastic marketing analytics program. Syracuse has a fantastic market. So everybody in the US is very strong for marketing. I don't know about Edinburgh, but City has a very strong marketing. Goldsmith is fantastic for communication. UCL, they have a strong marketing team as well. I think McGill doesn't have marketing. I don't know about Ryerson as well. I'll have to check which in Canada has marketing. In Canada right now, I wouldn't do general marketing. I'll be honest. If doing it has to be the data science, with the data science or the marketing analytics. Singapore, NUS may have marketing, or SMU as well. Australia, of course, Melbourne and University of Sydney, which is not here, by the way, but both of them should have strong marketing programs. Paris has marketing. I don't know whether it's open for work with work experience or without work experience. So take a look. Amsterdam may have something in marketing as well. ESCP is definitely good for marketing. It's fantastic. I don't think IE has marketing, and Singapore doesn't have marketing. So I hope you made a note. All right, somebody's given me the stats and said college for MFin. All right. 705 GMAT or GMAT Focus? Can you answer that? And then I'll give you some options. Focus. Okay. So when you're looking at a 705 Focus GMAT with a GPA of 306 with a bachelor in math, MFin, you have some great options, buddy. It's not like you need to restrict yourself. I would look at MFin with a STEM combo instead of looking at financial engineering. That's the first advice I would give you. If I had to look at an MFin, I would look at Vanderbilt. I would definitely look at Duke. They have a quant finance that's strong. UT Austin has a good one as well. Dallas. I would also consider USC, University of Southern California, has a strong MFin program, which is STEM designated. The MQuantFin at Columbia is also good. You have some good options. You definitely have some good options. I mean, your list will have to be realistic. Like, you'll have to have some 3 dreams and 5, 6 targets, but overall should be good. What percentage of candidates with the red pen get into US is financial aid? Now, financial aid is very tricky for Indian citizens, right? Because most colleges are need aware. So if you apply with financial aid, and even if they like your candidature, but they don't have the money that you asked for, they will reject you. So we do a cost benefit analysis, and our strategy changes from each applicant to each applicant. We've had applicants get a full ride merit scholarship without asking for financial aid, and then they've taken that over an Ivy League. We've had students get into an Ivy League, get into another college with aid, but then not take that college because they go to an Ivy League. We've had applicants get into get an opportunity to apply for a presidential scholarship after they have finished the application, and they get invited to it. They were not even expecting any money from that place. So financial aid as a word is tricky for an Indian citizen or an international citizen in the United States. But merit scholarships is a strategy that we definitely work with. That's more targeted so that you can leverage that. See, the idea is not to get you in at the red pen, right? Because if your goal is just to migrate, then you go with an agent. But the idea with us is to kind of get to do that list, that deep list of options where you get multiple admits so that you are spoiled for choice. My most exciting time in March, April is when I'm speaking to applicants who are maybe working with multiple counselors, right? And then they request like for a more cohort meeting to discuss their final decision. So 2, 3 of us will get onto a call to kind of debate and, the pros and cons of each. Those are my most exciting times in March and April, because then there's no right or wrong answer. Somebody's got 3 admits, 2 with aid, 1 without aid, right? And then they're like, each one is an amazing option. Those are the opportunities we want to create for you. We want to have those discussions with you at the end, right? That's a hope, that we get you multiple admits and then you are spoiled for choice. But yeah, financial aid is tricky because of the international citizen, but we definitely do work on merit scholarship strategy when we do your college list. All right. On that note, I'm going to just leave this slide on in case anybody would want to click a slide picture. All right. And then I'm just going to now turn off the slideshow and stop screen broadcast so I can see everybody now. All right. I do want to thank each and every one of you for taking your time and attending the session today. I am always very, very happy to meet motivated, dedicated applicants. It takes a lot for people who are in the final year of college, people who are working to kind of do this bit of prioritization of self and, say, okay, I'm going to do this for myself. I'm going to give it 6 months and I'm going to give it 5 months and I'm going to cut out my social life and focus on this. And I'm notorious for telling my applicants that this is a form of self-love that you practice when you do this application process, because it takes so much out of you, but it also gives you so much in return. You become so self-aware about who you are, what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, where your gaps are. And you become so empowered with the right skills, your resume, how to do your resume, how to focus on your LinkedIn, how to write a strong academic writing paper, how to do interviews. You're empowered by skills that are going to make you successful in the professional journeys ahead. So it's a very, very exciting time for me to be able to see some of you here and say, okay, you know what, this is the batch that's going to go out and achieve these great things for themselves. So I do want to thank you for your time today. The team is here to answer any questions for you. I'm going to stick around for another 30 few seconds. So if you have any questions, sure, please ask. And if not, then you will have our email address. You can always get in touch with us and we'd be happy to talk to you. Anything in Australia for sports management, Alka, there are a lot of options in Australia for sports management. If you send me an email, then I'll take my time and kind of give you some options. But sports management in Australia is a fantastic idea. But look at Melbourne, definitely. Look at University of Western Australia and look at University of Sydney. Let's start with these three big ones, and then if you need more, then you can email me. What colleges should I look for at a film and cinema? And if I don't have much work experience, should I work first and then go for a master's? The recording of the session will be available on YouTube, on the Red Pen, this thing. We'll also email it to you, don't worry. For film and cinema, you should ideally work for it. Film and cinema is a very broad concept. You can't just go there saying, well, I have starry eyed, I have aspirations. You have to be very unique about what you offer and why you want to learn what you want to learn. If you work, even if you don't end up after a year of work saying, I know what I want to do, you know what you don't want to do. And that's a start. Is it screenplay? Is it stage running? Is it production? Is it direction? Is it acting? Is it scripting? Short content, long form content? There's so much. So you want to make sure you spend some time on the ground, build that understanding, a deeper intellectual curiosity, and then let's talk film and media schools. Okay, looking at some other questions that I may have missed out. Gap. Like, look, what do you call a gap year, to be honest? A gap year means sitting home, chilling, watching Netflix. Then no, that's not acceptable. But if you were working, then that's okay. That's not a gap. You were productively engaged. If you were running your own enterprise venture, then that's not a gap. So I want to start to understand what your definition of a gap is. Masters in Industrial or Data Analytics, it is better to choose MSBA from a business school or MSIE with analytics. Where did that question go? 1 year experience of the data analyst and 1 year the design engineer in automotive. Ritika, look at the curriculum, look at the outcome. Okay, whether it's offered from the School of Engineering or from the School of Business, the only thing that will change will be the bend of the curriculum. If the outcomes are inherently aligned with what you want to do, then it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what the program, it doesn't matter which school it's offered from, because the faculty is shared sometimes. So I'd rather you focus on the curriculum, the electives within that curriculum that are being offered to you, and then what is the alumni outcomes that align with where you see yourself, and then make a decision based on that. Answer live. Done. Okay. If our standardized scores aren't good, should we still include them? I mean, it depends from program to program, right? I always look at the percentile as an indicator, but I also match the percentile to the program. If it's a quant-heavy program, you need a stronger quant. If it's a program in philosophy or you're doing psychology, your quant is average, but your verbal is strong, then that's fine as well. It's going to be a strategic conversation. It cannot be a yes, do it, no, don't do it response. It depends. Okay. Okay, I was confused for choosing what. So a gap for a year. Gap for a year, okay. Doing what? What will you do in the gap? That's what you have to ask yourself. It cannot be I'll sit at home and I'll figure it out. It has to be I was doing things, making mistakes while I was figuring it out. Then it's not a gap. Masters in Org Psych, Organizational Psychology, Soumya. Business Psychology at UCL, phenomenal. NYU, Social Organizational Psychology Masters, but they need a 1 year work ex. So sorry, Columbia, Social Org Psych, they need work ex. NYU also has a program. Org Psych, lots of amazing programs for organizational psych. But start with UCL, Columbia, NYU. Fantastic opportunities there. Few colleges for economics in the US and Europe. One thing, it really depends on what economics, right? If you're doing a master's in, say, developmental, then I would say LSE is fantastic. Yale is very strong. But if you're looking at financial, then Columbia is a very big program. So there are a lot of options based on your profile, right? There would be a match of some which are good. A lot of the US in social sciences colleges will offer PhDs. They will not offer masters. So you want to make sure that you first know what within economics and then match the masters that exists. Okay. Soumya, Europe, Org Psych, Amsterdam should have, because Amsterdam has a very strong psych department. Can't think of others on the top of my head. I'm going to have to take a look. Extended degree, more time to complete degree, does that affect? Well, if you're backlogs, right, and you took time to finish your degree, it would matter to like more competitive because they like if he could not or she could not cope with the rigor that we offer at our college, at that current college, then how will they cope with the rigor that we offer? But if you're able to explain it in context to why it took you extra time and then you're working after that, you give them a little bit of a cushion of work experience between your undergrad and your master's, should be explainable. Alka, work experience will always increase the chances of a better university admit. You know why? Because the pool is so varied. 0 years work ex to 10, 11, 12 years work ex. You suddenly not become the lowest in the ranking. You are somebody who's now got more maturity and clarity, and that shows in your essays. The number of essays when we work with and we see applicants who don't have work experience and their stories are a lot more aspirational versus people with work ex who are coming with a lot of clarity and sharing real world examples of the work that they've done. It's a world of a difference. But there's always a time and place for everything. Like, should I just do anything for the sake of work ex? No, absolutely not. So then it is worth a conversation about what work ex to what program, and then see whether at your time in life, if it makes sense. Which university is the best for agriculture and microbiology? I have absolutely no idea from the top of my head. I would be happy to do research for you should you want to know, and if you do subscribe for our services, our team will move heaven and earth and get you the right opportunities, find you the right opportunities. Again, fully funded is a very, very niche chance for international candidates. Unless you're doing a PhD, in which we're talking about stipends and things like that. And then we have to talk about integrated PhD or general PhD. So we go into much deeper discussion. So, but we're definitely happy to work with you on it, should that be the service that you require. All right. On that note, thank you everyone for staying with me for so long, for coming, giving us your valuable time and attention. We at the Red Pen wish you all the very best in your education journey. Remember, we do have an SOP session coming up. So if you are working on your SOP, haven't signed up with the counselor yet, then you know that that's the session that you want to be at. Take care, everyone. Fantastic weekend. Bye-bye.